I'd like to see change in lack of youth in the correct spaces that require decision making.
Ministers to leave, some more funding to be given, efficient response system to manage the crime rate.
A change of government,
a continuation of the gains of democracy.
as the functionality of bursaries.
It's free education.
Job creation.
Welcome to our Manifesto Debunking Podcast. Hello and welcome to our very first episode of Voter Literacy, where we equip you with the knowledge in order to make an informed decision come the 29th of May. I am Sanele Sithetho and I'm not here alone. I am with...
Be greeted, I am Lona Sokanyile.
And with us, we are joined by Humairaa Mayet, who is a PhD candidate in the School of International Relations and also a member of the leftist student movement. Welcome, Humairaa.
Hi, Sanele and Lona. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming. So, without further ado, let's just get straight into our first question. Can you provide us with an overview of some of the small political parties that are in there, and one that people can vote for, the key differences, what are they about, what are they offering, and also the policies and approaches that they stand for?
Great, thanks so much for that, Sanele. So we're all familiar with the big three in the form of the ANC, the DA, and the EFF, but I think a lot of us, especially young people, tend to overlook the smaller parties, and this can prove to be very detrimental in many ways come election time. So first off, we have the offshoots of the DA in the form of Herman Mashaba's Action SA, Musi Maimane's BOSA, and Patricia Jalil's Good Party. Their policies as they currently stand are very similar to that of the DA's, given that their leaders started off in the DA. And then we also have Rise Mzansi, who they're calling the new kid on the block. And Rise Mzansi presents as a somewhat strange party because they aren't particularly transparent about their policies. Like I said, the three I mentioned previously are very much in line with the DA, but this one isn't too clear on a number of issues that we face as South Africans. And then of course we have the very controversial MK party headed by former President Jacob Zuma.
Very interesting one.
Very interesting one, I'd say. So much contention at the Constitutional Court in the run-up to this elections. And I think come 29 May, we'll just have to see what happens with him and with his MK party, which has presented so many problems since its inception. We also have older parties like the UDM, which has been around since apartheid era, which has a number of democratic policies, but also presents strangely in contrast to the ANC. And then we have the IFP, the Inkatha Freedom Party, that has a stronghold in certain regions in the country, like KZN, but has somewhat problematic policies as brought forward by many other parties. We also have the religious parties like the ACDP, the African Christian Democratic Party, and Al-Jamaat, the Muslim party. These are also controversial in their own right, and a number of people have brought up the sort of issue that they have with them. And lastly, we have the extremely controversial VF Plus, Freiheit Front Plus party. And yeah, I think a lot of these parties have come forward with their various manifestos and policies, positions since campaigning started. And I think, yeah, if a close look at all of them shows how vastly different they are from one another.
All right then, over to you, Lona.
Interesting. You've highlighted quite a number of small political parties that one can possibly vote for. What about the independent candidates? No, we tend to actually forget about them. We really forget about them. What would you say is the core differences in terms of their manifestos? What is it that they have to offer that political parties generally do not have to offer?
Yeah, very much so. Like you mentioned, we tend to overlook them, we forget about them. If you're driving down perhaps Empire Road, you'll see all these adverts for political parties, but you won't see any for independent candidates. They don't have the funding, they don't have the manpower that the political parties have. But I think they differ significantly from the political parties because they aren't guided by party policies and bureaucracy the way members of the larger and even the smaller political parties are. They don't have to toe party lines on a number of issues the way candidates from other parties have to. Say perhaps you are a member of a party, and although you might have differed from your party's view on one or two issues, you'd have to follow what the party says on that. The key difference is independent candidates are guided by their own beliefs, by their own ideologies. They're able to develop their policies independent of a mother body.
Yeah. You did mention some of the challenges that they also face as well as independent candidates. And also, how do you think we can actually encourage young people to engage with independent candidates, to actually support them, and yeah, to be supportive in the political process?
So I think one key challenge and what must be noted when discussing independent candidates is that this is the first year that independent candidates are able to run in this capacity. That means people might be reluctant to vote for them, a bit unsure as to what it would mean if they come into power, things like that. But on the other side of the coin, those young people, particularly young people disillusioned by parties, disillusioned and tired of the big three, perhaps even of the smaller political parties, might be keen to look into independent candidates and what they stand for. Because they're so tired of hearing the same rhetoric, the same narrative time and time again from these political parties. And you asked how they could sort of engage with them, so I think they can approach them. I'd say independent candidates are far more approachable than parties, purely because they're on the ground themselves. Party leadership is somewhat detached from the ground. So yeah, they can approach them, perhaps even on social media, where we know young people enjoy approaching political issues. And then they can study the manifestos, look at things like that, and see if it aligns with their personal beliefs and views.
Okay, this brings me to my third question of, since we have the parties, right, and the independent parties, what are the parties doing, like in terms of efforts in addressing our issues as like unemployment, tertiary education, funding of the youth? Like, what is the differences between the parties and independent candidates? What are they doing? Yeah.
So I think they differ vastly, both within this realm of parties and independent candidates. Like if you look at the manifestos of different parties, some of them have put forward the pressing issues that youth face, like youth unemployment, like the issue of tertiary funding, which we know is massive at the moment in the aftermath of media exclusions, NASA's crises, things like that. Some of them tend to focus on it, but a lot of them tend to overlook it. If you study the manifestos of certain parties, they barely mention it at all, and I think that's terribly unfortunate, because a majority of the voter constituencies aged 18 to 35, the young people in this country, we make up the majority of the country, and I think by not appealing to us, political parties and independent candidates fall very short, because there's voter apathy. We see it in the number of people registered, we see it in the voter turnout on election day. And I think by appealing to young people, by providing tangible, solid solutions to these crises, by providing the potential for a youth-centered government, political parties and even independents can win over the very many young people that are overlooked in these processes.
That was a lot. That was
A mouthful, and very interesting. And you know, we really need conversations like this, because you know, at this point, I'm registered to vote, but I don't know who to vote for. And I think that is the challenge that most young people are facing at this point, because we've been hearing the same thing over and over again. And what we all want is difference in terms of leadership, and we want representation as well. We want to see young people taking space in spheres of politics as well, and leading and governing.
Alright, we'll go to our last segment, which is tackling the frequently asked questions. We'll have one of our hosts, Rivaldo, pose the 3 questions that are mostly asked by people. You may take it away, Rivaldo.
Greetings, Rivaldo Jantjies is the name. The first question that I have is, how will voting for a particular party or candidate benefit me and my family directly?
Okay, so before casting their votes, I urge each and every South African to study closely the manifestos of parties and independent candidates and see if what these parties and candidates present align with their personal views and align with the South Africa they want to see in the future. So for example, if you were to vote for a very nationalist party, you might see a rise in xenophobia, which ultimately we know spirals into a rise in violence in certain areas in general. If you were to vote for a very religious party, you might see a change in abortion laws and same-sex marriage laws. And then if you were to vote for one party, you might see the implementation of the NHI, the implementation of land expropriation without compensation. But on the other hand, if you were to vote for a party which stands against that, you might see the scrapping of those bills altogether. So I think what's most important is just as individuals, as young people ourselves, we all want to move toward a better future, build a stronger South Africa. We have to look at these manifestos, study them carefully, and see that what these parties and candidates present align with what we want in our future, because ultimately this is our country.
Yeah. And speaking of manifestos, it's quite actually very easy to get a manifesto. You just Google it and it just pops out. It's very easy and convenient. Yeah.
Thank you. This brings me on to my second question. What is the role of local government versus national government, and how do their responsibilities affect me?
So the national government tends to focus on broad issues like defense and foreign policy, while the local government focuses on community-based issues. So either way, you're going to cast a vote for both. So it's just up to you to decide who it is you want to take over those sorts of roles and what it is you want to see in your future. It must also be noted in this that the government spheres are fully autonomous. They don't exist in a hierarchy. It's not that one is above the other, one is below the other. They exist in tandem next to one another. They function hand in hand. All of the spheres of government operate according to the constitution and the laws passed by Parliament.
Thank you. The last question that I have is very simple. Why do I have to vote?
Oh, it's not very simple.
Yeah, I have to agree I have to agree with Sanele. It's not at all simple. It's actually really complicated. I think you have to vote, and each South African has to vote because your vote counts. It's very easy to say, you know what, 29th May is a public holiday for me. I'm going to sit at home. Other people will vote. But imagine if everyone had that mindset. Imagine if everyone just thought, oh no, someone else will cast their vote. I don't have to. It's not my responsibility. Ultimately, it is your responsibility. We're all citizens of this country. We all want to see it function to the best of its ability. We all want to see an end to corruption, an end to service delivery issues, and to the number of problems that plague this country. And we can effect change by voting.
Thank you so much, Humairaa. I feel like I've learned a lot
in this session. I learned a lot, and knowing that, with your vote, you are actually taking part in governments that can possibly change.
Exactly.
You're taking part in being one of those people that want to ensure that you are in a country, a better country that you want to see as an individual or as a citizen.
Exactly, because it doesn't help to, as you said, sit around and expect change, but you are not making the strides towards it. I mean, it's a two-way street. Let's meet each other halfway. But thank you so much. This was a wonderful session. Thank you for coming through. And thank you to our viewers. I hope you've learned something and we've literally equipped you with the mindset of what you will do when the 29th of May comes. Thank you so much.
That's sweet and short.